Even though it doesn't look very pretty at the moment, the future is exceptionally bright. Source intelligence always tries to bring back the full bloom of all the possibilities that are available. Many of the masters of the past came here to embed light codes very fundamentally into the fabric of this dense energetic that this earth has been caught up in. To go into the heart center is a surrender to self. When you get to know yourself deeply, all the layers that have been hidden over many, many lifetimes are going to come to the surface. There are these massive, beautiful, multi-dimensional systems. Timelines are jumping all the time. Every single choice we make is slightly changing and adapting what we call the Earth experience. That's another interest. They're bringing a whole bucket load of fresh questions here today.
Our community is so amazing and they love you. So this is just...
No, that's fine. No, it's great. I love this. I met a lot of different beings, and the quality and the feel of the energy is sometimes very different. One of the things that my teams have said to me many, many times, and this is from the Arcturians, they kept saying to me,
welcome everybody to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. Today's an honor because I have my good friend Dave Clements joining us today again. So welcome back, Dave.
Thank you for having me. It's a real joy to be back.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the last interview, we had Pam Gregory recommend Dave, but then about 20 other members of the Heart Coherence Collaborative has said, you have to reach out to Dave Clements. He is amazing. And so we had an interview and it was so cool. And I have a little surprise for Dave today. I didn't tell Dave this, but over the last few weeks, I reached out to some of your biggest fans and I asked them to submit questions for today's interview.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so today it's going to be a blend of a bunch of different energies, but it's people that truly love you and are really excited to ask these questions. So I hope that's okay. But yeah, you and I have become good buddies. I knew you'd be okay with it. So, all right. Yeah. So the first question we have is, Dr. Clements, your work often reveals suppressed scientific knowledge. What is the most critical truth currently hidden from humanity, and why is it coming to light now?
Ooh, let's start in the deep end.
They're your fans. They're your fans.
Yeah. I'm gonna have some words with my fans. No, it's cool. So let me see. From my time in mainstream physics, even through my research and my postdoctoral research and stuff, but there was this big theme about the concept of how everything is seen. And nothing was living, nothing was conscious. It was all just dead mechanical stuff, and you just add your quantities together and you get your result, effectively. And literally all of engineering, all of mainstream physics is imbued with that. And so much of what young students are taught to go from there all the way through to research is there's a number of different foundational principles, like, can't create or destroy energy, second law of thermodynamics rules, all those kind of things. And for those people who aren't familiar with those, so the second law of thermodynamics is about chaos and order. So that, and it was actually originally designed or created to try and better understand the workings of steam engines, going way back, They wanted to understand how the process of a steam engine works and how they could sort of control and formulate the process and so forth. So there's a number of different things like that which have never really been altered or changed. Now, coming back to the question, I would say that the aspect of, in my view, the aspect of the living conscious aspect of energy is one of the big ones. Because when you understand that, like I believe Nikola Tesla did, he was probably one of, if not the earliest pioneer of this kind of thing. He was able to open up a whole can of worms, and still to this day, much of his work is still, tucked away. And so, there's a big thing there. There's so many different people around the world, and I was very lucky enough to work with Tom Bearden and John Bedini, really wonderful people and sadly they passed away now. But they, John had reproduced just about everything of Tesla's he could find, and I saw a lot of it in his lab. He's a crazy inventor. And so there's a ton of stuff that he was discussing there that is really off the shelf, not the sort of stuff that you'd ever find in mainstream stuff. And you know, the way that this stuff behaves is quite incredible. It doesn't behave in the normal way that people expect it to. It's not mechanical in nature. It is responsive. It does respond to conscious intent. And I believe that our expose, if you like, or our exposure to this kind of technology is just really at the beginning from our standpoint of humanity right now. I do believe we've had that way in the past in different cultures that have been sort of, you know, sort of brushed away, so to speak. But I do believe that they were working in these kind of arenas before. And I do believe that's what's coming back because the way that source intelligence seems to work is it doesn't, it always tries to bring back the full bloom of all the possibilities that are available to people, particularly when they're opening up and they're asking for it. You know, so, you know, you can't contain that for any length or period of time. And I believe that's part of what we're going through now to open that up.
That's a great answer. It's so funny. One of my neighbors, I told him about you, and he's become a really big fan.
Okay.
And so I saw him today, and he was like, "Oh, you're interviewing Dave? Well, you just asked Dave, how did he get to be such an amazing human?
Oh, bless him. Okay.
How did he go from a physicist to a channel?" So that would be my next question for you.
Okay,
How-
well,
yeah.
yeah, well, bless him for that. That's very cool. I mean, like I always say, you know, I always say to people that, you know, please never look at me as if I'm something that is, you know, something special, because I always say to people, you know, anything I can do, you can do. You know, there is no difference. It's just a, you know, my path here and my choices before I incarnated to set myself up in particular ways has led me here. But that doesn't change the fact that we're all source energy beings, and there's nothing that we cannot create or become or be that we want to be. I'm very big on encouraging people to see things that way if they want to. I don't have to. It's, you know, it's their life. But I think it's important because to get to the question, it was kind of hard looking back. I never would have imagined myself being here doing this, that I'm, you know, all the things I'm doing now. It just would never have crossed my wildest imaginings ever. And so I kind of feel that I've been very strongly guided, you know, to do, you know, no, not doing that. Yeah, stay here, do this, you know, very, it's the things that weren't meant to be really didn't work out. And it was, you know, really in my face obvious. That's not going to work out. That's not your path, you know, this is, you know, so there was a lot of that going on. And, you know, it's very bizarre. I remember ages ago, this is reminds me of, I went to a mind body spirit fair. I went with a friend, and he said, "Oh, you got to check out this palmist here. He's really, really good." I thought, "Oh, okay, well, I've never done one before. I'm not sure if it's a thing, but I'll have a go, you know, see what he comes up with." And I looked at my palm and he said, "You're the way everything is laid out here, it's like you are really absolutely on a mission here. Like there's something quite absolute about what he was reading." Still to this day, I don't fully understand what he was reading, but that's what he said. But that really is in agreement with what I've seen in myself, that there's just everything seems to really magnetize or coalesce towards what it is that I'm doing. And I believe that when you really practice working, connecting with your higher self and being within the heart center, that magnetization to who you really are and everything aligning trait-wise, or, you know, events that are going to happen, people you're going to meet, really start to strongly coalesce in the right way that's more in alignment with you. So I think that's part of it as well, you know. So I hope that that kind of somewhat answers the question.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I just want to say you have you know, like a very I guess it's like an addicting energy where everybody that I share your message with, they fall in love with you. So I tell him how I'm like, Dave's a super, you know, he's a very humble guy. I'll share your message with him, but he's gonna just, you know, I knew you were gonna answer exactly how you did.
Yeah.
All right, so I got
Yeah.
one from one of your fans. This is another deep one. So
Okay, go for it.
about manipulating mainstream narratives. What role does light frequency and energy play in these control systems, and how could we use those instead to liberate human consciousness?
That's interesting. That is a deep question. Well, what I would say to that is that it's, in my view, my understanding, many of the masters of the past came here specifically to go through those experiences they did. Some of them were quite traumatic, to embed light codes very fundamentally into the fabric of this dense energetic that this Earth has been caught up in. And if you can imagine, a little bit like a root system, if you start planting light codes in the root system, they're going to work their way up all the way through, and they're going to embed themselves and develop within the organism itself. And so in many ways, that's kind of the behavior of how light or living light consciousness tends to work, in my view, is that, and it's the same when you get codes from the sun, and when you're open-hearted or doing meditation, and you start beaming that out, and people pick that up. It goes into you, and those light codes open up, they start getting to work, and their bias is for life and expansion, but they never overstep free will. And so much of this, as well as the seeding of light codes within the fabric of this old energy to break it down from within, has also required the free will choices of people on this planet to take it in, run with it, grow with it, expand it, emit it, and all other layers to do with that, to make this whole thing work. So it really has been, a multifold process of requiring people to really open up and take that journey, make those choices to just emit more, open up more to more and more light consciousness, light codes within them, get in touch with their heart center, and everything starts to just go from there. And then everything else outwards starts to magnetize towards it and starts to do the same. It wants to do the same. Because it's a little bit like when people emit those very beautiful source intelligence energetics, let's say. I mean, there's no real word or phrase to really encompass it, but that's kind of good enough for that. There's a feeling of grace and ease, and that's the compassion, all those layers of intelligence that naturally, that source intelligence is. And it's very simple. It's already inside every one of us. No one is an exception. And all you have to do is make the choices to open, and connect. And that's how it simply works, in my view. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question. I've kind of tangented a little bit there, but
oh, that's perfect. I have a question. Well, one of our members has a question relating to that. Are there any DNA upgrades happening? Have your guides mentioned any DNA upgrades happening right now on our planet?
Well, the from what my teams have told me, the holographic structure that we call DNA it acts as a transmitter, and also a receiver, and also it has a transducing element to it. It changes energy from one form to another. And as we evolve, the reflection in our DNA of the transmitter reflector part is going to change as well. It's more than just the actual physical the helix of the structure of the amino acids building up to make the DNA chain. There are fields upon fields of living, flowing systems that interact with that on a multi-dimensional level, as well as down here as well. And part of the aspect of this is, as we're going through our awakening process, is that interflow between the multidimensionality of the fields surrounding DNA and the physical component of DNA itself are becoming more and more switched on and more active as well. And as that activity picks up, the ability of those high dimensional conscious aspects to influence or change that is going to become more and more as well.
Our mission here at the Heart Coherence Collaborative is to get people in touch with the healing power of the heart.
And we really need your help. Right now, only 1% of viewers subscribe. We are aiming to take that number to 6%.
The reason why we want to do that is the more people that subscribe, the more people in the world can learn the magical practice of heart coherence.
So please help us out. If you've ever listened, if you love this message, please just take a moment to subscribe.
Thank you so much. We love you.
We love you.
If you could meet with young physicists, let's say the next generation, what truth would you share with them to guide their work in the coming paradigm shift?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I would get some really cool questions, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you to all of you who asked these questions. These are really cool questions. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. It's, I in a way, I consider myself very fortunate to, myself, my teams, obviously, yeah, you're going down this road, to have met the people that I've met, such as Tom and John and other people as well. There's a lot of people that have had very beautiful positive influences on my aha moments and, my views of things. Some of them have been left field from people who are not, involved in, say, physics or energy research, that kind of thing. Very beautiful souls. And what I would say to any physicist coming through is as somebody who's gone through that system, the like I was saying before, the main way that you are taught to see everything is almost to linearize everything and break it down into Lego-like blocks, and then try and create this huge complexity and say, look, this is the system that we're looking at, and it's all complexity. One of the things that my teams have said to me many, many times, and this is from the Arcturians, who are adept, and that is pulling it mildly, as to how advanced they are with living energy technologies. They are really, really awesome beings. And there's many other beings like them out there as well. They themselves, even though they have a beautiful balance between heart-centered intelligence, mind advancement, spirituality, their deep connection with source, they have a very beautiful balance of the whole scaboodle, the whole 9 yards, so to speak, And they kept saying to me, you are going to see a completely different way of living when you center yourself in your heart and allow all else to be an instrument extension from your heart center. And when you do that, they said, you are going to see things that you never could see before. Things are going to become apparent to you that you couldn't see before. And they said the difficulty with seeing everything through the mind lens, if you want to call it that, is that it always structuralizes everything, because that's what it is. It's a structural linker. So it gets impulsed with a thought and it links thoughts together to make new thoughts. And it is very beautiful at what it does. But it's really the creative center within the heart intelligence that actually impulses and creates the new stuff. So if you're completely embedded in your mind and you've sort of diminished level of connection with your heart center, essentially what the mind does, it just keeps linking and relinking old thoughts again and again together to essentially permute them together to try to create something that appears to be new but isn't. And if you look at the way physics works today, it almost seems a little bit like it's going around in circles. It never really, it creates more questions to the questions it's trying to answer when it thinks it's answered, and it never actually really gets anywhere. And because I believe it's like a hall of mirrors, you can create as many complicated mirrors as you like. You're still just seeing reflections, and in the same way, when you really go down into the heart intelligence and you impulse your mind with something brand new, then instead of having a hall of mirrors, then you see something completely different. And the mind can become an instrument, an extension, the applicator of that pure, brand new inspirational intelligence that's come from here. So in that way, I'd say that, to answer the question that somebody asked, I would say that even though in the environment you're probably in, doing mainstream academic physics, like I was for many, many years, and I wasn't involved in this at all, so I totally understand where they're coming from. I would say that spend time in meditation and connect with your higher self, and even ask your higher self to start guiding you on deeper understandings and perspectives of what you're being taught compared to what really is going on, if that makes sense. And then hopefully then you'll start to flow more into this paradigm within yourself, that instead of just taking on what others have told you, this is the way it is, this is the way to see it, this is the way to do your calculations and come out with the answer. It's no, you already have a very clear view of what is and what is not from within. Can you start to move in that direction and come up with something that is truly profound and new? That would be my advice, I guess I'd say.
They need to join the Heart Coherence Collaborative and do some heart coherence meditations with Kyle and Leah. The next question actually segues. Many of our listeners practice heart coherence and meditation from your scientific perspective, what does the heart represent beyond biology? And you've gotten into this a little bit, but what might it reveal about the structure of the universe?
Another deep question. There's some very deep souls out there. Yeah. Well, let's see. What I would say is that let's start this way. One of the things I found very difficult in the beginning as I was going through this journey, and particularly with my teams trying to help me understand, and I spoke about it the last time that we talked, was that I had learned to see everything in a structural way. So everything I would do would be break it down into structure, formulate equations, the mechanics of everything, and and they kept saying that's not going to work, and I got so frustrated many, many times until finally I twigged, okay, so what you're saying is, there is so much more going on here that if I just look at things through a mind perspective, through a structural lens, it essentially will prevent me from actually truly seeing what's going on underneath. And the heart is pretty much a very great example of that, because yeah, you have your physical heart and all the other things that go with it. But my journeys into the heart center through working with my teams, my higher self, is this immense opening at the center, which you cannot structuralize. I've tried in my early days to look at things structurally. It just doesn't work. Structure is an appearance of things which have become so densified, so compactified, that they appear to work in very mechanical, sort of solid ways. But as soon as you start to undo that compression, the energy physics, or the behavior of energy, because that's what I see as, physics to me, and another word of calling it, is just the behavior of energy. That is physics in a nutshell. But what mainstream physics looks at is the more mechanical, highly compressed forms of energy, and how do they behave relative to each other. But when you take the compression off, and suddenly all these multidimensional fields and all these other living systems that appear to you, suddenly energy behavior becomes very different. It's nothing what you used to. You can't put structure to it because the structure's just disappeared. It's become something else now. And one of the closest steps that we as humans can see to that are plasmas. People talk about plasma research a lot and the behavior of plasmas, and even physicist called David Bohm, who was, I believe, the first one of, if not the first person to do work with plasmas and realize that plasmas were self-organizing. They had this quality to them where they were behaving not like normal, sort of high temperature gases and so forth. They were doing different things. And he categorized it as just that they seem to be self-organizing. Now, to me, with the way my teams have described it, is that when you go higher and higher up and the compression comes off, suddenly the living aspect, the intelligent aspects become more into play. The more multidimensional aspects become more into play. And so that is where we're starting to take the tip of the iceberg and look a little bit deeper. And so, yeah, that really is where it's heading. And with the heart center, that it's very much similar, that there are these massive, beautiful, multidimensional systems. And one of the things that's been described to me is that, the heart center itself, the fields that are there within the core of the heart center, are kind of formidable in a way that they will only let the real you in because it's for you only. And so it's and so a lot of people, myself included in the past, if I go in there, say I'm going to make myself gay, I'm going to do this today, it's like you either flake out or something else happens, you bounce off. And my teams were saying that essentially to go into the heart center is a surrender to self. You can't force yourself, you can't make yourself. You have to relax back into who you really are, and it's that simple. You can't control yourself there. You can't do those. And so the heart center, I really still feel that even though I've done many journeys, I've had a lot of amazing teachings by my high self and teams. It's just unending. It's just such a beautiful gateway that, is just, it's so hard to describe it with language, because language itself is a structure, and trying to pin little bits of language to try and get a concept, to form in your mind like that is impossible, I feel. But I hope that somewhat gets towards, that it really is an experiential thing rather than something you can really quantify or quantize as this, and this, and this, and that's the whole thing. There are quantifiable aspects, the physical muscles of the heart and cells and so on. But the deeper you go into it, the structure falls away and gives away to multidimensionality, where you get living fluid fields which don't behave in the same way that we know exist, or we know or feel or see or touch outside of us, So I hope that gives you a somewhat answer to that question.
Oh, that was my favorite answer on the heart ever. The heart, beyond structure, it's beyond words. I love it.
Yes, yeah, I feel so, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So I think some of these questions are a little easier. We'll take it down.
Okay.
To your channeling. We have a lot of members that are very just fascinating and have some questions about your channeling. So they want to know, what was the moment you realized you were channeling the Arcturians and Pleiadians and not your own thought?
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, for a long time, I was just sort of in my little sort of bat cave doing my own thing kind of thing, and not really I really didn't want to be out on stage. I didn't want to and to this day that still doesn't interest me. I don't do it to jump on and what have you. I actually came a little bit kicking and screaming that my teams asked me to do this, and I thought, I'm not sure I want to do that, and but so for many years before that actually took place, and I agreed to work with my teams in that way, I'd communicate with them. So it wasn't like a vocal channeling where they would, speak through or speak via, empathically, where I could hear what they were saying and I would just repeat it. So in the early days, I was just communicating with them in my own side internally, getting information and, getting to know how that communication works best and how it doesn't, the states you have to be in to being at peace, being in calmness. If you start stepping into control and grabbing or, wanting to get somewhere, I really want to get the answer, that's going to flatten it out. It doesn't work that way. But the more playful, and they've always said this to me, the more playful you can be with it, the more fun you can have, the more those sort of light fibers that those energies will flow through can start to open up, and you can get very clear messaging and imagery. And from the beginning, actually, it all started when maybe, let me see, what was the year? I think it was about 2005, I think, around about that area. I just finished my PhD. I'd already gotten really interested in this stuff. I'd had some initial contact, and I went to this it was a course, and it was by a lady called Amora Kuan Yin, Pleiadian light work, and I really wanted to do this because I'd had some contact with the Pleiadians, and this initial kind of results, because I really was a little bit skeptical going in. I thought, well, okay, you told us to pair up and we're going to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, how are we supposed to do this? And like, a real sort of like fresh off the boat kind of experience, and, but the imagery that came through was so definitive and so clear from the beginning that, the person I was standing with, I'm saying, well, I'm getting this, is that right? And does that mean anything? She said, that's spot on. That is exactly right. The clarity of this was really uncanny. It reminded me of my earlier remote viewing experience of just how, visceral and, how you could feel it really and audibly hear it as well. It was crazy. And so I just carried on in my own way, developing this and doing a lot of work on myself. And I think that's a very big thing for anybody out there that's looking to do this. One of the key things I would suggest is that my teams have said to me, self-honesty, being very clear with yourself, what it is you have to look at, what it is that you got to clear out the way, is a very key thing. Now, this is something that I slipped up a little bit in my early years, and I know a lot of people, like me, still do now, is try not to frame yourself as being anything, because a lot of people tend to hold themselves as an identity or to make themselves feel good, kind of a ethos or identity, whatever you want to call it. And they were saying the very the quickest way you can evolve and progress is by being crystal clear, honest with yourself, saying, yeah, I do that. Yeah, that's something I have to change. Or, yeah, I felt that. Or I thought that. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. Don't berate yourself. Don't take yourself as if, oh my God, what, no, 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 shove that back. No, let's carry on with my, the way I was holding myself before. Because when you get to know yourself deeply, all the layers that have been hidden over many, many lifetimes are going to come to the surface. And that is okay. That is purposeful. It is meant to be, and it is necessary. And once you really are very clear about saying, you know what, this was simply an experience. I came here to learn. I did learn something, but there are some residuals. There is stuff left over lingering from that life, perhaps the trauma, being scared out of your wits for some reason, or a whole host of other things that can still be sitting there. Being very honest about those and saying, yeah, there they are. I can see them. Not going to push them away, not going to deny them. I'm going to acknowledge them. I'm going to let them go. And I've found that by doing that, because initially it was really hard work, because my eyesight was just full on giving me all this stuff to look at, and really wanted to clear that out the way. It was like a real fast track, I guess. And it was difficult. There were times I held my hands up and just wanted to, screw this. I can't do this. This is too difficult, probably a little bit more expletive than that, at times, but that's all part of the fun honesty of it, that it was what it was. And the more you can do that, the more you will access the hidden stuff that is getting in your way, and that's one of the big pitfalls. A lot of people continue on a long time being in such denial of ABC, wondering why they're not moving so fast. And I would say that one thing that you might want to look at is just take a moment, just go in, don't be afraid, just really take a good, clear look at yourself. What is it that you have that's really holding you back? Because it really is only us. We're the ones using our own consciousness against ourselves in ways we don't yet fully understand. And that's why certain patches in our lives can be proving very difficult. I feel that's certainly the way it's been in my experience. And when I finally uncover what it is that was holding things down and the things I wasn't able to accept then, and move into acceptance, suddenly, huge release, suddenly all this new light flow starts to come online. And now you see and feel and hear even better. You now even perceive, things that you didn't perceive before. So I hope, people could just pick the parts out of that they, are happy to use for themselves. Because in my experience, that has been a profound accelerator forward, doing that.
That is such amazing advice that I've never heard anyone share before. It makes so much sense. And it just makes me think that there's so many layers of like shame, of just bad behavior.
Yes. Guilt, shame, fear, all of it. Yes. And this is the stuff, one of the ways that it was described to me as well, and I think I also read this somewhere a long time ago, is that guilt is like an inbuilt alarm system, and it warns you that you're now following your head when you should be following your heart. So we as human beings, I believe that we have these inbuilt sort of sensations that goes, whoa, hold on a second, if you keep on down that road, it's going to end up in, some, not so nice things. And, we have these things, and, I believe guilt is one of them. But the trouble is, because of humanity's path, so many people, and I found a lot of this within myself as well, is that the guilt and shame aspect teaches you very incorrectly that, oh, you've done this or you've done that, and therefore, oh my goodness, no, that's nothing could be further from the truth. You are, in essence, pure, living, intelligent light, and you go into these holographic structural experiences to have the lessons that you want to learn. But it's not, but to go into the mud the way we do, sometimes you have to come out and scrape some mud off because it sticks sometimes, and especially when you react to it, we accidentally hold on to it. That's the dross from all these past lives. And the thing about it is that that's really what the shame and the guilt covers. It puts a veil on it and makes us think that it doesn't let us touch what's underneath it. And so that's one of the big things I would say to anybody, and that I had to sort of learn the hard way by hitting myself against the wall so many times, is that when it comes down to it, look at it this way. You were born of source intelligence. You were there at the creation of every galaxy, every universe, every solar system, every atom in creation. You were you were not absent for any of it, because you are part of the source intelligence. How can you possibly be ashamed of anything or feel guilty of anything? Because it's all holographic experience. You know, we're here to see light in areas where places have become too dense. To do that, sometimes you need to take on a shape or a form or a lifestyle that doesn't necessarily gel with you as your magnificence, but your magnificence is being seeded in there to break it open from within. But as we do that, sometimes some of this stuff sticks and we go, okay, right, I went through that mud bath, clean that up, now I've got to get it off me now, you know. So that's another way to look at it, you know, be playful and fun, because it makes the taking responsibility is one word, but looking at yourself very clearly to say, you know, this stuff that you have that you feel guilty or shameful about, it isn't actually of you. It's just a holographic construction. Some groups of energies that you picked up while going through these experiences, and now you just got to just wash them off, you know. And there's nothing to be guilty or ashamed about. You know, you are source intelligence having an individuated experience, and you have the power to do this. Everybody does.
Wow. One of my favorite answers ever.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference between the Arcturians and Pleiadians in regards to the messages you receive?
Oh, that's an interesting one. We're getting some really cool. Yeah, just really, I've never been asked these questions before. That's cool. How would I answer that one? I would say that, well, let's put it this way. One of the first things I do when I make contact with these beings or they approach me is, first of all, it's my, you know, my higher self is the gateway for all of this. So that's step one for if anybody's looking to do this, you know, say to your higher self, look, you know, you're the gatekeeper of this. Make sure if anybody comes along, you know, make sure it's exactly who you want me to meet, you know. And but what the beings that I do meet, they encourage me to just take a moment, feel the energy. Who are we? Can you feel who we are? Can you feel the energetic emission we give off? And I met a lot of different beings, and the quality and the feel of the energy is sometimes very different. But within the center of that, you know, if they are heart-centered beings, you feel that source intelligence right there. It may be projecting itself in a particular form or an image of something, you know, as an Arcturian or a Pleiadian, but that sweet, compassionate wish to reach out and help another is always there. But I would say in the type of information, because the Pleiadians are very, at least the beings that I've seen, are very orientated towards healing, helping people understand the spiritual, pardon me, the spiritual things they need to look at, you know, things they need to clear and so forth. And the Arcturians, they do that as well. But they seem to feel, and it may be just the groups that I've connected with, but they feel like they are much more focused on the living energy technology side of things as well. But I do feel that all of their civilizations have these different qualities that, you know, of, you know, what the Pleiadians do and what the Arcturians do and so forth. But they focus it in different ways. And the Arcturians are very ancient, you know, they're very old civilization as well. But really it comes down to the energy. So the best way I can answer that question is it's really the quality of the energy. So for example, let's say you meet a friend one day, and let's say they're going through some troubles or, you know, something's going on, you know, you can feel that energetic, if you're sensitive to it, coming off them. You can feel that something's wrong. You can get almost a snapshot glimpse of what it is that's going on. And then another day, you know, it's all gone. They're great. They're happy. They're back to center again. Everything's fine. So the quality, an overlay of their energy will change from one day to the next, but the core of their energy is right there. You know, that's the source intelligence, right, when you get right down to it. And so that's the best way to really put it into words as best that I can. But yeah, because ultimately, as these beings get closer to source, that the more of that core source emanation comes right through, and it almost becomes a common trait, the higher up the beings that you go. And so those really are the beings that I love to connect with, that have that quality and operate from there. Because and people have asked that, well, how do you know that they're in for your highest good? How do you know that? Well, as a premise, source intelligence within us that dwells within the heart center, when a being or a race starts to work from there and really opens that up and lives exactly, from that center, there is an innate intelligence of compassion and kindness that just simply is, and from that place. And they're reaching out to you as from that place, and you can feel it. You can feel the sweetness, the kindness, the intelligent wish to help another aspect of source that is asking for help, or perhaps needs help. And that's very different from another being who might be coming from an agendaed point of view, a very mind-orientated or an egotistical, origin, if you wish, who may pretend to be your best friend and may pretend, yeah, I'll do this for you, all that kind of stuff. But really, they want something from you. That's a very, very different experience. And the source within doesn't want anything from you. If anything, it simply wishes you to find the greatest joy within you. It wishes to help you find that same source within you. That to me is very clearly, my experience in dealing with some of these beings. So, yeah.
I love that very much. According to the Pleiadians, what timeline are we on, and are we at risk of falling off it?
Okay. I would say that timelines are jumping all the time.
Right.
And it's all to do with the net potential streaming together of everybody's choices simultaneously. That sounds like a real mouthful. So essentially what it is that as living intelligent beings that have free will and we make choices all the time, every single choice we make is slightly changing and adapting what we call the Earth experience. And so, and that's one of the big things that I've been asked similar questions before related to this idea of, what's holding us up? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Well, one of the big things is you have this source emanation that is beaming to us through all different ways, through the sun, the galactic core. It's coming out from space. It's coming out from the Earth. It's coming out from our center. And it's simply asking the question, do you wish to return home? Do you wish to open to your true self and know who you really are and know the truth? And it's always offered again and again in each moment and never ceases. But we have free will, and source intelligence 100% respects free will. Even if you want to do something really stupid, there are certain limits, because coming here is a part of our pre-agreements. Coming into these spheres or these games of free will, there are certain things that are not allowed, such as things being completely obliterated and yada, yada, yada. So there are frameworks and guidelines in places like that. But within that framework, we have this free choice to move, change, do not do as we wish to. And so literally the timeline is fluctuating and moving all the time, but when this great awakening, as it's happening now, there is a coalescence of this centralized move towards expansion and ascension that is so well defined as a potential, as a timeline. It's very strong, so something pretty damn significant would have to happen to move that off, and there isn't. It's not going to happen like that. And the other way to think of this is because if you remember back when I talked about light code seeding, that when in ancient times past, masters will come in, they'd have these awful experiences like, Yeshua and other masters like, some of which, are not recorded. In order to see light within the concept of the holographic concept of the experiences they had, so that light could embed itself within those concepts and structures and start expanding and dissolving from within, And so as light comes in, as we do more light work, as we expand, we reach out to each other in kindness, true heart-centered kindness, those kind of things, more light codes get seeded, they start to bloom and expand, and that central potential of ascension gets solidified even more. So I would say that is our timeline, a very, very just unmovably strong one, I would say. And that is what we're rocketing towards. And maybe back when, many decades ago, that was uncertain because because people hadn't made their choices yet in order to ferment the energetics in place in order to get that timeline to focus and coalesce on what we're doing now. So yeah, I hope I know because it's a hard one to pin down because it's quantum in nature, it's fluid in nature, but because of it's like, a waterfall or water spraying everywhere. If you then collect the beam and then focus it, it's still water, it's still spraying moderately everywhere, but now it's more really focused, and channeled in a particular way. So maybe that gives a bit of a more tangible feel to it.
Last answer was my favorite until this recent answer, and now that's my favorite answer ever. So yes, that's great news. The highest and best timeline is going to unfold. Now, just real quick, because this is my question, not anybody else's, but I'm curious. I heard you say that the obliteration it's not a possibility. So that's awesome news. And anybody that's channeling doom and gloom obliteration messages, is that just crap?
I would say this. Here's one way to classify any information that you're getting. Does that information serve to empower you, or does that information serve to make you feel down and disempowered? Yeah. It's very, very simple. And it's not about being in hopium, oh yay, you blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. No, there's truth, and then there's fiction. And then partway between there is people with all sorts of other agendas and things as well. And I would say the thing is this: we are creator beings. We are immensely powerful, and we are getting to learn and remember just how powerful we are. And think about it. If the so-called forces that want to do X, Y, Z and what have you were really that powerful, why hasn't it all been taken shape so far in that way? And the reason is because we as creator beings, if you look at it this way, consider somebody who, what's the best analogy to make here? Somebody who recognizes that somebody else has a particular talent, doesn't have it themselves, but wants to make use of what they have to steer it in the direction they want to steer it. And now you put together all of the movies we experience, all the subliminals, all the stuff that people get thrown at them. What is that actually doing? Is it steering you in particular ways? And this is one of the critical things for people to understand. Be very sovereign and self-empowered and self-responsible in understanding the energies you create and the way you guide yourself in your energy generation, because that fundamentally is what it's all about. If you can be coerced into creating fear energetics, hate energetics, all that kind of stuff, that's what you're going to pump out. And you're going to be layering more of that dross into the earth experience. But if you say, hold on, whoa, hold on a second. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to step away from that. No, I'm going to refocus my energy. So what I'm generating is purely the truth of me. It's going to be loving. It's going to be kind. It's going to be compassionate, because that innately is what it is. And so more people focusing on that and recognizing, wow, you have complete power over the exact energy you create all the time. So are you allowing others to move your energy generation where they want you to generate? Or are you going to say, no, I'm generating this. I'm generating my truth. I'm generating my peace. I'm generating who I really am inside. And that is immovable. So I'd say that's what it really comes down to, because it's all about, are you going to let yourself be manipulated? Like somebody who is acting in, what's that duality, victimhood or promoter. So are you going to play the victim still, or are you going to step out of that and say, no, at every time I can choose the energy I generate. Sometimes it might be difficult because the energy coming out from old situations comes to the surface. That's okay. Recognize it for what it is, let it go, and move on. Become more of a self-empowered. And I believe that in its word is really what self-empowered in a nutshell really means, that you are empowered from self. You make choices of exactly what you generate, when you generate. and become a very beautiful light beacon that generates exactly the energies that they would love to generate at any given moment. You're not swayed or pulled by anybody else's agendas. You're not swayed or pulled by anybody else's wish to bring you down and have you pump out fear or hate or anything else as well. So that's a really big thing to, that's part of our evolving process, learning to do that, I think, as well.
This is a good segue into one of the next questions we received. Have the Pleiadians or Arcturians ever warned you, or is that not something that they do?
Oh, when you say warned to me, what anything specific or?
You about anything in the future that could be worrying, any, predictions, or is that just not the energy that they emanate?
That's another interesting. You're bringing a whole bucket load of fresh questions here today.
Our community is so amazing, and they love you. So this is just
no, that's fine. No, it's great. I love this. This is cool. Let me see now. There have been times when they have given me heads up on things, but it's really to do with my personal path. Sometimes I'll ask them, okay, can you give me a snapshot of where things are going right now? Is anything that's going to happen? And the way it comes to me, and I believe this is how it essentially it's like a quantum impression or a signature or a snapshot. It's not a stream of in sequence, this is what's going to happen. You get the whole thing as a giant impression. It goes, okay, now decode it, now open it up and see what you've just been given. And it's funny, sometimes I've seen things and I thought it was to do with worldly events, and then I realized, oh no, it wasn't. It was me. It was stuff that was going to come up in me. And this unfolding, and it happens in exactly the sort of the way that they gave the impression that it would be going. But what I would say is, in all this, and I can feel my teams close by, my higher self, I think they want to say that one of the most important things is really to detach yourself from worldly goings on. All that does is it really enmeshes you back into the system that constantly wants you to pump out fear and all the low energies. They're saying just try and spend as much time, having fun with yourself, your higher self, connect with your higher self, be in nature, really relax, because you realize that every single structure, holographic form, is founded by source intelligence for game playing purposes. Source has this, this is, we're not just straddling a line between, oh crap, and oh yeah, that's cool, but what it relies upon is our wish to relax into that, and relax into that unimaginably infinite intelligence that knows exactly what you love, it knows exactly what gives you joy, and it knows exactly what will bring you the most joy in your path, and it will put everything in place, if you let it, by using your free will to choose to do so, exactly as everything is supposed to be within your life. And that's the difference. See, I know, from somebody who's been very head-centered in the past, how dislocated and how planning you think you've got to be to make sure you get through the day without something knocking you from left field and, coming out the other side moderately okay. But when you relax into the heart space, you realize, oh my goodness, everything was always ever being handled multidimensionally on many high levels. The times when it didn't work out was when I got involved, started to resist, started to take the reins back mentally, and started to try and run the race how I thought it should be run. And you can do that. You have freedom to do that. But I think mostly you're going to find that it doesn't necessarily work out so well. But when you allow yourself to give your reins back to your true self, and relax and just flow with the experience and just let your higher self put everything in place, everything works out really, really well. That's another way of seeing it.
Beautiful. Are there spiritual or energetic technologies that your guides want us to remember or activate?
I believe they're doing that in a lot of different people, actually. Yeah, it's and I think redundancy is a big thing, that they have many different aspects of these cultures that will come in and incarnate with specific tasks to remember certain things. And one of the things that I feel that they like to remind people of is that, in truth, when you look at very advanced, the very high level civilizations that I've contacted, they don't have any technology per se. Yes, they can crystallize form and they can do all sorts of very cool things, but their level of emanation of source intelligence is so high. There is zero possibility of injury. There is zero possibility of anything happening to them that they can't, it just can't affect them. And so really there's an intermediary when civilizations are working at, say, a very dense 3D level. As they transition their way through to the higher levels, they do start to develop, some very, very beautiful and sophisticated technologies sometimes, and then living energy technologies that takes care of certain things. But one of the not really warning signs is more like just something to be a heads up on, that my teams always say, is that what you have to remember is that true healing comes from within. That's not just a nice airy-fairy phrase. That's to say that the source intelligence in you knows exactly how to rearrange every single atom, electron, subatomic particle in your body in the perfect way to bring you, exactly what you want to be, But you have to be able to access that to do that. And because of the experiences that we've had as civilizations, where we've hammered down on our heart centers because of awful experiences and being hurt and wounded so much, we've really, and I've gone through these processes myself, been very afraid to connect there because of the traumas and the wounds and everything. But when you sit again and be very clear with yourself and just say, yep, okay, I see that. Okay, I don't need that. I need to let that go. And just go through the process of unfolding that dross. Suddenly you come to a place when you realize more and more source intelligence comes through. You feel it flowing through your body, and it's like that is the intelligence behind the intelligent design of the universe. It's the intelligence that knows how to grow, from DNA strands that it created itself, and develop beautiful organisms and correct those organisms when something like a mishap happens or something goes wrong. And so these very advanced civilizations, they have access to this, and you get to a certain point where you don't even need even the beautiful technologies that many of these races have. And the reason why they have them is because within those civilizations, they have multidimensional extensions of themselves. Sometimes they're really high, sometimes they come down and they play around in fourth, fifth, and sometimes third density as well. So sometimes they need supportive technologies to get them by because there's a diminished level of access to source intelligence within such density. And so, it's this whole myriad of this game, but I would say that always focus back within yourself, because any way in which you are thinking that you don't have the ability to do X, Y, Z is in fact a form of disempowering yourself or telling yourself you can't do something. Again, I remind people, well, the essence within you founded this entire universe, every galaxy, every structure, every holographic form. Do you really think it can't handle, if you let it through enough, everything that you're asking it to do? Of course it can, but you have to be able to let it through sufficiently to do that. That's the thing. It's like with water. You've got a really muddy cup like we talked about last time. If you're just going to put a couple of drops in there and it's going to take a few drops eventually to get some mud cleared out of there, But if you really open up that valve and let water pummel through there very quickly, that mud is gone. It's out of there. So it's sort of an analogous way. It's the more open you can be, the more connected and more allowing of that source intelligence to come through. That's when the real miracles and magic happens.
That's great. And it kind of answers our next question, but I'm going to ask you again anyway, just to see if there's anything you want to add. But what would you or your guide's message be for anyone feeling stuck, lost, hopeless, or fearful?
Yeah, well, building on much about what we've just spoken of there, I would say, because I've been through many patches myself when, it was real dark night of the soul stuff, curled up on the floor, crying my eyes out, because I just didn't see any way out of what was going on. And I know other people, have those experiences too. And what I would say is that what my teams have said to me, because at the times when I was going through them, my teams, I couldn't hear them so well, because when you're going through, when the crap is pouring out, it makes it very hard for you to hear high dimensional and speech and understanding. And so what I eventually learned to do is to say, okay, right, there is something that is coming out from my past. It feels quite heavy, but what they were saying is that the heaviness, in my experience, was that it was the resistance to that. you know, we talked before about really being crystal clear and truthful with yourself. It's okay to sit down and say, you know what? I feel crap today, really crap, you know, and this is going on. It just simply is, you know, that's it. And, you know, and even feel the quality, because one of the biggest things, one of the biggest difficulties that humanity and myself and my experiences have had is, and my teams have said, is that you don't just feel your feelings, you don't feel your emotions. And we look at emotion, the word emotion, energy, motion. It's your ability to feel the motion and flow of energies, emotion. And so it's a very critical and very important sense that you have this ability to feel the motion of energies. But if you don't want to feel them, you lock them and they get stuck. If they get stuck, that's when all the crap starts to happen and the problems come in. That's what's happened for me. And so hitting my head against the wall many, many times, swearing my mouth off, you know, at the frustration. And it's okay to say these things, you know, and this is what I encourage anybody in spiritual circles. Don't be afraid to be very crystal clear and honest. You know, if you are feeling something, you are feeling it. That's okay. That is right purpose and it is good. You know, don't go into pretense and pretend you're, and it's one thing that is a very difficult thing for a lot of people, that, you know, they think that, oh, I'm on the spiritual path. No, I should be like this, or no, you should not be like anything. You should be like yourself. That's it. You know, there are no do's and don'ts here. You're going through a process that you are very well qualified to go through. You knew it coming into this life. You met with very advanced beings, high councils, and you said, right, okay, I think I can tackle that puzzle piece, and that puzzle piece. I'm going to go in and I'm going to have this life path and I'm going to do these things. And you'll sort of agree with your higher self. Yes, you can do this and you can do that. You'll get help here if you want it. Or if you want to do this by yourself, we'll be hands off until you ask. Whole bunch of scenarios like that. But when you get to these places where you feel really, and speaking from my own experience, you know, when I've gone through these places of deep, dark nights of the soul, these are usually very key puzzle pieces that we said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to sort that out. And I'm going to sort that out by just having the experience of it, you know, not to fight it, not to judge it, not to judge myself or fight myself through it. I'm just going to walk, it's like walking under a shower of muddy water. I'm just going to walk through. I'm going to come out the other side. It's going to feel rotten going through it. It's going to stink like crazy. You know, it's not going to be very nice. But this is when I come out the other side, by seeding my light into these very dense, darkened patches of energetics. Finally, when you can really have the experience of it, your light codes can actually get in there. If you're in denial of it, your light codes can't get in there. That's the problem. So you really have to just see it as it is and let that light just shine into it, you know, and it may not be instantaneous. You may have to wait, you know, a couple of hours, even a day or two for this to take place, depending on what it is, in my experience. And then as the light codes go through, that puzzle piece dissolves away. As it dissolves away, you now have attained to the consciousness to solve that. And by emanating that energy, you now make the solution available to everybody else as well. And so we're all working on these different puzzle pieces. And then we provide the solutions when we get the aha and we go through it and we do the release, come out the other side, and then there it is, you've done it. Wow. And yeah, it's that to me in a way is how, in my experience, things work.
Thank you so much for that. Just hearing you say, you know, feeling the emotion versus feeling the energy in motion, just converting it to feeling the energy in motion does something different. It really does. Like, it puts a different mind frame on it. And when you were saying that, like, wow, that is what I need to do. And I also appreciate everything you said about just being honest about where you're at, you know?
Yes.
I would love to invite anybody listening. My email is coherencetrainers@gmail.com. If you have something you want to speak about or just get off your chest or shit, kind of like Dave was just talking about, email me. I would love to listen to you.
Yeah. And, you know, I'd love to add something else on there, because it's a very important thing that the stuckness is actually our own consciousness keeping it there. You know, it isn't actually stuck. It wants to leave. But the trouble is, because of our experiences as creators, having a mind, having the ability to grip as well and hold on and refuse to feel feelings or emotions, that's when difficulties start, because instead of just going through that muddy waterfall and just letting it pass through, let the dross pass through, because it will if you let it, we go, no, what's going on? What's happening? Oh my God, the sky's falling, and you hold on real damn tight sometimes. And what that does, it now prevents the energy from moving and coming out of you. You're locking it in place now. It wants to leave, so it's pushing that way, and you're pushing back down that way. And now you've got push-pull. Now you've got this battle going on inside you. That is resistance, and that's when things feel almightily hard, And so that's why what I've got into the rhythm of doing after my teams help me is to sit down, just relax, close your eyes, really feel into that resistance and ask your body, where is this resistance in me? Your body is intelligent, it's alive, it's living. And it will show you, and your higher self can show you, right? And then you get a sensation of where it is. Just breathe into it and just ask that area, you know what, just relax, it's fine. Nothing's going wrong. There is just something passing through. Just, let it be, when it's emotional based, and that's the way that now that I do that a lot to myself, I've been able to, things that used to take me days or even weeks to go through that just seemed unending, just a few minutes, bang, gone. It doesn't, and it's all about learning to understand yourself as an energy being, I know some of these words sound a little bit sort of airy-fairy in places, but in truth, we are a living, intelligent energy system that is emanating from source. That's our truth of where we come, but we're living in a holographic form we call the human body to have a human experience in these realms. And part of the trick is to learn to understand ourselves as the ebb and flow of energy creation, reception, and transduction, or transformation of energy in one form to another. And our emotions are crucial in that, and the allowance and honoring of what we feel, not sugarcoating it, not pretending it to be anything, just feeling it, seeing it exactly as it is, because it's okay, it's fine. And when you do that, you give yourself permission to let go, because you're not trying to hold it or frame it in any particular way. You are now saying, yeah, okay, there it is. Okay, all right. Let's breathe that out, let it go. There you go. And it's gone. Because it will leave easily, I find. But it's the grip and the control that's the problem.
Anybody listening, if you have that grip and control, I still do. I'm working on it. But there's still a lot of, resistance.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. It feels really good to hear that.
Yeah, and I want to reassure people as well, because I still find pockets of it too. I mean, people say, "Oh, wow, you must." No, I get my stuff to work through as well. It's not but the difference is now, when you understand, when you come across a puzzle piece that you have agreed to work through as part of your mission here, you can deal with it with lightness and joy. It might knock you for a minute or two when you start just to settle a rhythm. Okay, I'm just going to see it for what it is. Settle down. Okay, there it is. I see you now. Okay, right. I can see you. I know what you're doing. It's fine. I'm going to let you come out. Just, bon voyage, and it when you practice that art of self-understanding and learning how you work as an energy ebb and flow being, things get a lot easier, in my experience, a lot easier. So I would say that to anyone, just take some solace in that, the fact that when you just learn that simple art of just never sugarcoat things, the resistance itself is in a grip because you're afraid of seeing something inside yourself usually. Once you come to learn that about yourself, things get a lot easier, because now you see, I see it for what it is now. I don't need to fight myself. I don't need to fight this. I don't need to sugarcoat it, judge it, or put labels on it, or identify it, or name it. It just simply is, and it's passing through,
Yeah, I love that. And everybody listening, we can do this together. So if you're struggling, reach out, email me. We're with you. Just a few more questions, Dave. Is that okay?
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Have your guides ever talked about UFOs, disclosure, or what's going on with ET sightings?
No, they haven't actually. It's interesting. I know that there's a whole deal of hubbub on that whole subject right now. It's but the thing about it is that I think the reason is because of what it comes down to. I mean, the beings that I connect with, I was very specific with my higher self that the type of beings that I want to connect with, they must be heart-centered, they must be highly evolved. They must be coming from that place. I'm not interested in working with anyone coming from any kind of agenda or all that kind of nonsense, whatever it may be. I'm not interested in that at all. And so the beings I connect with, they are so, a phrase, flowy, if you want to call it that. They really are in their rhythmic self. They really do come from that place. Nothing is a worry to them. Nothing is a concern, because they understand how infinite source is behind all, everything that's going on and moving everything, helping people make free will choices to undo the grip, to let go of the illusion and re-embrace their true selves again, but all in a way that they wish to do. It's not pushed or forced on you. But little by little, no matter how slow or how fast it goes, that is the direction we're heading in. So at some point, and I feel, probably given the potentials as they are, very, very near, we will get that, and it will happen quite naturally. I know there's a lot of debate about how it's going to happen, what's going to kick it off, yada, yada, all that kind of stuff. Well, to be honest with you, I don't feel that Source works that way. It doesn't pick an event that it's heading towards. It adjusts and ebbs and flows to make the most joy. So if people aren't going to find joy with doing it that way, we'll move over here and do this way instead. And it's always in this dynamic, fluid flux. Because again, it's responding to our free will choices. It'll say, okay, you've made that choice. Okay, so if you don't want that over here, okay, I'm just going to flow you towards here. Let's see if you like that. Maybe you'd like to do that. Oh, no, maybe not. Okay, so we'll flow you over here instead. It's kind of like that. It's almost like the ultimate chill out session. It's like, and that's the way I see it working. The sentiment I get is that there really is no panic or worry at all. It's not like that at all with those higher beings. They are here to assist, but what they're here to assist people do is to understand that they are their own resistance, and they can make choices to let go and open up to who they are, so they can become fully aware again. That's all there is to it. The rest is just piece of cake history, whatever you want to call it. Everything else falls into place. It doesn't need ultimate planning and bits and pieces, all this kind of stuff. There is a very organic, natural flow towards humanity becoming reintroduced to its light families that are elsewhere. I don't think anything can step in the way of that. But how that happens is a bit of an ebb and flow, depending on the choices that we make.
I love you guys. Cool, man. Nice and chill. That's awesome. Has there ever been a message that's been mind-blowing, like the most mind-blowing message that they've ever given you? Do you recall one specific?
I can feel them smiling. It's let me see. I can't really recall a singular instance of that. I would say that one of the things they do is they're very good at not being overly involved. So they don't try and steer you. What they do is they let you have the aha. They're like, okay, watch him, see what he does, and then, oh, wow, cool. Yeah, I get it now. There you go. There. It's like, so it's a little bit like, a very cool kind of brother or sister, or, parent, if you want to say that, perhaps that's not the best way of seeing it, but who really wants to see the very best, but they know because of the source intelligence inside them, they really understand the stepping back as well. They'll come in and help when asked for, but they're not gonna ride your bike for you. You've got to learn to do that. That's part of the growing up process. But they're going to help you in the right ways to, maybe saddle up on the bike, put your feet on the pedals, do this motion. If you ask for it, they're very keen on people learning to be responsible energy creators and receivers, and also transducers, being able to emit good energy, be able to receive good energy, and also transform energy as you love to as well, in a very basic way of looking at it. It seems to give them great joy, and I can understand why, because, for me, having connected with the source intelligence of my higher self for many, many years, particularly my higher self, you just have this innate desire to see people happy and joyful. It's no more complicated than that. It's when somebody's down, you feel like you just want to reach out, but you don't do it in a way that's going to do it all for them. It's to reassure them, look, everything's okay. You have absolute power to do this. You knew you did coming into this. You simply have to walk through and learn to understand where you're holding on, where you're gripping, where you're resisting yourself, and learn to stop doing that and learn to be in the peace and flow that you really are. And the more you do that, the more it becomes a practiced art, a way of being. And then suddenly you're just doing it very naturally now, and it just keeps happening and happening. And so things bother you less and less and less and less until, the core of these problems just dissolve away. And then it's like, oh, wow, I had those major problems and that's all gone. I'm not even bothered by that anymore. It's just gone. So I think there is this lovely relationship of you could call it respect, from one being to another, but I would say ultimately it's the source intelligence within them lovingly respects and wants to help, but not overstep with other beings.
Wow. This has been such an amazing conversation, deeply healing for myself, and I'm just grateful for our friendship. Is there any message that you have for anyone listening, or you or your guides, that you think that they'd want to share with everyone listening right now?
My higher self just said, it's very simply, hold on to your seats. Not in the holding on we've been talking about, but literally just in a human phrase. My higher self was laughing. And that is to say that even though it doesn't look very pretty at the moment, the future is exceptionally bright. So get excited, don't switch off your TV. That's from literally just engage in the energies that bring you the upliftment that you're looking for and leave the rest behind, and good, amazing things are coming to humanity. And the rate at which we get there, although it's very rapid right now, will ultimately depend on the collective choices, but that doesn't impinge on your personal choices in your own life of how quickly you arrive at the place you want to get to as well. So I can feel my higher self saying that humanity has done and is doing exceptionally well, and do not be discouraged by what you see. What you see is literally the mud pouring out lightning fast from the glass called the Earth experience. And it has to come out. It must be gone. It must be removed. There's no other way for it. And you see it as it comes out. It plays itself out in the scenarios we see going on right now. It plays itself out in people that engage that energy and start going erratic and doing crazy things. There's so many instances of that. And as long as you just keep connecting with your heart, connecting with your higher self, anchoring yourself in your truth, you cannot be wobbled. The amount of stuff that can wobble you, you'll find will just get less and less and less and less the more you keep doing that, and you'll just find real peace no matter what is happening. So yeah, I think that's the message.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave. How can we support you? How can anybody listening follow your work and support you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have a number of websites. So we have icinfinergy.com, which is to do with these devices that the teams helped us bring through to do with harmonizing your environment and clearing away degenerative coding and replacing it with generative coding. There's also the Patreon platform that we have where we do these meditations. So 1 to 15 are all completely free, and they go all the way up to the initial opening and deeply activating of the core, the infinity point gateway within inside you, which if you just practice that alone every day, you'll really, as I've found, it really will skyrocket you. So those are free, but after that, because we moved to this paid for platform to keep it ad free, we just ask for any of the personal activations on there we have a subscription for, but the Global Earth meditations are always going to be free, so you can join in those for free anyway. So that's on there. That's under Infinite Source Creations under Patreon. And we have a main website of Infinite Source Creations, which encompasses that and some of the other devices that we brought through as well. So you can go have a peruse, have a look, and see what you think.
Well, we've put those links below, and I encourage everyone to sign up. I've become friends with Dave. He's one of the most amazing humans that I've ever met. So
thank you.
And this awesome interview, and just thank you for our friendship.
You're very welcome. And lots of love to you all. And again, just as a human being, one human to another human being, just just remember that you knew exactly what you're coming into, and you knew full well the power that you had to effortlessly get through this stuff. So if you ever find yourself in that awful corner, just relax, just embrace the truth of it. Just like we've talked about in the interview so far, just recognize it in the truth that it is. And you know, in my experience, it just really quickly passes once you just see the truth of it and let it move through. So yeah. And just try and have as much fun with yourself and your high self connection as you can, and things will get a lot lighter rapidly.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, everybody. We love you all, and we're sending you love. Bye, everybody.
Likewise. Bye-bye.